And we're back with the Dr. Joe Show with Patrick Troy-Brandt talking about some amazing stuff. So be sure to stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about amazing stuff. And, one of the things I wanted to come back to, if we could, was something I noticed you say early on that you basically enlisted when you were 17, and you said signing up as a child. 17?
So yeah, it is an interesting fact, but it is absolutely, technically true that America is one of the nations in the world that does accept child soldiers. Technically,
Wow.
it's just um, and again, like what I was saying before, you can enlist at 17 with guardian's signature, and for example, you can go do basic training and then come back and finish high school, you know, after that summer, and then you graduate and you're in the army, and that sort of thing. And I did, much to my parents' chagrin. I think, as I mentioned this the episode before, they were at the same time extremely supportive of me and proud of me wanting to pursue my dreams. The other time, very, very much not excited about the prospect of me going into the airborne infantry in 2004. And yeah, that, and you bringing that up, I have to say, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is been on my mind, quite a bit, and I reflect on my journey, myself at 35 now, and where I was at 17, you know, wanting nothing more than to join the military and fight for what I thought was right. And it's not, I had the support of a nation behind me at that time, and as a 17-year-old in 2004, little, there was so little room for questioning the war at that time. I think we can all remember that. And
Hmm.
and there was so many external factors of mine propelling me, to this great adventure. And yeah, I don't, I'm not, I'm trying to get very, trying to stay very apolitical with this, but the fact that Kyle was a child when the events occurred, technically a child who was supported by people who equipped him with the firearm, who drove him to the location, as opposed to, this was not a lone wolf incident. This was not a vigilante patriot, whatever, you morally you put on it. This was someone who was fervently supported by their community to be put in the situation they were put. And you could probably, maybe you could say the same thing for the victims of that night too. But I haven't watched much of the trial. I just don't, I just know that I don't know who I would be if I was 17 years old right now and had the mind, that I had in 2004. So whatever that's worth, I think it's deserving of empathy and pity for people that are maybe forced into situations, thinking that they are absolutely doing the righteous good thing. I don't know.
No, but this is a powerful moment in the United States, because I think that there are many parallels to that, about people believing in something that they believe in, and that they need to do the right thing for it. And
Yeah.
you know, that's part of the I am, is saying, okay, so that's your I am. That's the best you can do. But let's try to understand it based on the influence of the four domains. Doesn't mean it's a free ride, you're held responsible,
Right.
but understanding it is different than judging it. And so there you are, a 17-year-old impressionable.
Yeah.
The United States is, you know, I think more or less on the same page, the majority of people perhaps on the same page, unlike now where we have real political divides, which, you know, have their own merits and there's history behind it. But there you are now, these years later, it sounds like you're reflecting back and wondering what?
Yeah. I do try. Yeah. I guess mine is a pretty extreme, unique example. The, 180 that I've done, but I mean,
But
I
what,
think,
but what is that 180, Patrick? Because
uh, well, okay, yeah, the 180 from being a gung ho, rough and tough soldier who wants to go into the army and then get out and be a cop, and work for the DEA, to a, now social anarchist, who is also an abolitionist and believes that the entire justice system needs to be completely restructured and relooked at, Um, but I mean, who among us didn't have some crazy shit that they did? Some, excuse me, some crazy stuff that they did when they were 17, 18, 19, that we now look back
right,
on.
right, and certainly, you know, I hope you're not judging yourself, but
Yeah.
recognizing, you know, what is a 17-year-old brand? I mean, we talk about this in drug story theater, you know, the impulsive limbic brain that is in charge, as opposed to the more rational prefrontal cortex brain that is now thinking things through. What will happen next if I do this now? And also in the last show, you talked about, yes, we need to change, but it doesn't mean that we can do it without being held accountable for what we have
Right.
done.
Right.
I thought that was a very, very important point that you made in the last show as well.
Well, yeah, I appreciate. Thank you for bringing that up. And that's sort of, I mean, I struggle with that. How, how do I reflect my identity as a veteran? And I believe, as far as accountability goes, I believe in taking ownership, of positions I was in, decisions that I made, etc. But I believe approaching that from a source of empathy, and with me and everyone else, on both sides of the table, my enemies as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, even if we have enemies, I still believe that all human beings want the same thing, which is just to feel valued by somebody else. And this, of course, is, you know, is at an individual level and at a national level. And that's part of the struggle that we have. How do we remind someone else of their value, um, even if we don't agree with their position, you know?
Why? Right. Or, I mean, that kind of had me thinking back on the subject of veteran suicide,
Mm,
and people not feeling their value, maybe. And this is a pretty common thing you'll hear of other veterans. In my team, my company, we've lost more to suicide than we have to those killed in action.
yeah.
And I was thinking about that because we kind of talked about this last night in prep for this show. And this feeling that you get on deployment, right? That all you're doing is just sitting over there and just thinking about the life that you'll have once you get out. I mean, it's almost like prison in that way, and your mind runs wild, and the person you've been talking to back home, you're gonna move in with them, and everyone's gonna be like, oh, it's them, the veteran. Yeah, we love you and we'll support you forever. And then I think with a lot of guys, something that's not talked about is the reality of the mundane, life that happens after the most exciting period in your life. You know, you go and fight this war and you experience objectively awesome and remarkable things. And I don't mean as in like cool, but like truly awe-inspiring. You can't fathom what you've witnessed. And I don't think combat becomes addictive, but I think surviving combat becomes addictive.
Yeah.
And I think that you see a real difference in people that have just been mentally torn up over the horrors of war. And just as toxic, you have people that have become war junkies. And I would say that the guys that I know that took their life after the service fit more into this war junkie category. Um, I don't know that we know how to even process that as a society. How do we deal with that?
It's interesting. I don't know whether I've heard the war junkie part as much as people thinking post-traumatic stress, survivor's guilt, the
Yeah.
overwhelming anxiety of always being, on edge and anything can happen. And I know that we're going to come back to this, but anything could happen if we don't take a break for our sponsors. And I certainly wouldn't want that to happen because we do have some survival skills going on here. But this is a really important topic, folks. We're going to come back to this because this is powerful. But first, we'll give our sponsors a chance to let us know about their power. Larry, let's take a commercial break. We'll be back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Stretch the